God. So, since they couldn't find any flaws in Daniel's work or his life, they attacked his faith. Let's see how they attacked his faith. So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it into writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed." So King Darius put the decree in writing. So they wanted to trap Daniel, so they had the king write up a law saying that no prayers to anyone except for the king for the next 30 days. Because they already knew that Daniel was faithful to God and that Daniel was going to keep praying to his God, as he should. So Daniel knew the law, but he chose obedience to God over obedience to the culture. Because it says, this is Daniel chapter 6. It says, "Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before." So Daniel kept giving praise to his God, just as he done before. So when you try to put this in real life, today's pressure to blend in or hide our faith is real, at school, at work, or even online. But Daniel shows us that true faith stands firm even under cultural pressure because he continued to pray to his God. He didn't let what they say stop him from serving his God. So the trap, which is the risk that faith has consequences, the jealous officials tricked King Darius into signing a law that said no one could pray to anyone except the king for 30 days. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown in the lion's den. Daniel knew about the law, but he still prayed to God 3 times a day, just like he always did. So following God doesn't always keep us out of trouble, but it keeps us under his protection. It's hot. So now we're still in Daniel 6, but now we're down to verse 11. "Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. 'Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prayed to any god or human being except you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den?' The king answered, 'The decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed.' Then they said to the king, 'Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day.' When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed, determined to rescue Daniel, and made every effort until sundown to save him." So they told the king about what Daniel was doing because they're still trying to, trap him. So the consequences, the officials caught Daniel praying and reported him to the king. King Darius was upset about it, but he couldn't change the law. So let's continue on with reading. Then the men went as a group to King Darius and said to him, "Remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or edict that the king issued can be changed." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation may not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. So the king was highly distressed that this is happening because he liked Daniel. He had found favor in Daniel. And so Daniel was thrown into the den full of lions, which is a certain death in human eyes. Like, of course, we think, oh, if somebody is thrown into a lion's den, surely they're not going to make it to the morning. But honors faith. He always honors faith to him. So continuing on, verse 19. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angels, and he shut the mouth of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. So the king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. So Daniel made it to the morning because he was found innocent in God's eyes, and everybody knows that he didn't do anything wrong. So King Darius is so amazed. Let's pause. So let's see, it says, the king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, his dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So Daniel prospered. King Darius was so amazed that Daniel came out of the lion's den untouched that he declares Daniel's God to be the true living God, which he is. So when you think about life, God may not remove the challenges that we face, but he's always going to be with us in it. He's never going to leave us alone. He's always going to be in the challenge with us, just as he was with Daniel. And so the outcome, the results, faith impacts others. Daniel came out of the lion's den without a scratch. The king punished the men who plotted against Daniel, and they were thrown into the same den with their loved ones, and they were crushed before they even reached the ground. Daniel's faith didn't just save him, but it influenced an entire empire. Because of that experience, the King Darius made a decree that everyone should worship the God of Daniel because he is the living God who saves. So you see how that worked out for him? Right, exactly. One man's obedience and faith is another man's salvation. Exactly. So your faithfulness in private moments can lead to public impact that you may never expect. And the key lessons is faithfulness. Daniel stayed true to God even when it was dangerous. Courage. He didn't hide his faith or stop praying. He continued to do the same thing that he always did. Trust in God. Daniel trusted God with his life, and God protected him. God's power. God is able to save and protect his people. And witness. Daniel's faith led a whole kingdom to recognize the power of God. So, some lessons for us that we can take from this is be faithful when no one is watching. Daniel prayed even when it risked his life, and stay consistent because you don't ever want to just give up on God or reject God, because he's the one that is faithful through it all. He sees all, and we should be faithful to him just as he is to us. Courage is choosing God over comfort. Aw. Hi. Courage is choosing God over comfort. Daniel chose obedience over popularity and security, and we see how it panned out for him. God honors bold faith. He didn't leave Daniel alone in the den, and he won't leave you. And your influence is bigger than you think. One person's faith can affect families, workplaces, schools, and even nations. So that is the story of Daniel in the lion's den. It is, I feel like that's a strong story, because I mean, it does show you that if you stay faithful to God, he really will stay faithful to you. And a lot of people can learn, you can impact a lot of people with the small things that you do, or the things that you think no one sees or doesn't matter that much or aren't that important. It is important. So continue to do the things that you do. Continue to serve God boldly. Be bold in your faith. And that's all I have for today. Bye, guys. Oh, it's hot. I have 6 comments.